Welcome to Marketers Drinking Beer, a live conversation featuring marketing news, trends, and case studies lubricated by discoveries from the world of craft beer. Today we'll be talking about soaring podcast revenues, YouTube's reaction to Instagram TV, and how the war on device addiction is likely to impact marketing efforts. Finally, we'll share some really big news about the show while sampling a delicious Pilsner from the Manor Hill Brewing. All this and more on this episode of Marketers Drinking Beer. Hey everybody, welcome to Marketers Drinking Beer. I'm Paul Gannon with the crew here. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Yeah? Enjoying the rain?
Swimming.
I like talking about rain. I like it so much I like talking about it twice every evening. So like tonight, we talked about it once.
Well, my basement flooded. I got a text just a minute ago from my wife. So.
Don't let that bother you.
No,
We're doing a show.
I'll try not to.
Yeah, don't let that bother you. So anybody else? I think everybody enjoyed their drive out to the kitchen studio here.
It's an unbelievable amount of water.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I was driving out on Saturday night, and it was not good. It was dangerous and bad accidents coming back. So we're outside of D.C. for those of you who don't know, and it's been raining here pretty much cat and dogs for 5 days or something like that, and with another 5 days to come. I think it was a total of 10 days of rain. In fact, you might hear thunder tonight. There's on the show, so lots of bad stuff. So, what's going on since we last met? How's your new job? Everything good?
Yeah, just moving along, settling in, and feeling good about it. Getting over the initial kind of stress of changing jobs, but as the older I get, the harder that becomes, But yeah, all good so far.
And you're gearing up to go to ASAE, huh?
My team and myself included will be attending ASA annual conference mid-August, I guess it is, like the 19th. So we're excited about that. But yes, it includes a lot of pre-prep and all the devil's in the details.
And you'll be our roving reporter.
I will be the
Chicago.
roving reporter, sampling beer and interviewing various marketers in and around Chicago.
Can we look into getting Patrick some press credentials? I think that would be a good thing for us to do, get you some press credentials.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I used to, when I was at Personify and we did a lot of video, I invented press credentials for myself, and I would work my way into places where I wasn't supposed to be. Like, so there was a half marathon that we always went to, and we sponsored and everything. And I went to like the winner's circle, and I was walking up with my cameras, and the policeman there goes, "I'm sorry, this is only for runners." I said, "I'm press." He looked at me and goes, "Okay, go on in." So it works. They just want those words, PRESS, those letters, and they let you in. So we should all get press credentials, and insert ourselves into places where we should. Well, that doesn't sound.
Did you
right.
put like a? Did you put like a big gold star in the corner or something like that?
No, I just had.
Just said press.
It hangs from your neck. It says press. I had my picture. Had a guy do them up for all of us, and
nice.
So that seemed to work. You didn't know that, so we could all do
Fake
that.
press credentials. It comes out.
Marketers Drinking Beer press credentials.
So yeah.
We had press
MDB
We'll put it
with
to
the
good
logo. We'll put the logo on there maybe. Or?
use in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, get some fake press credentials, get on the show floor. Right?
Yeah.
No one will know.
Oh, get in for free.
Get in for free.
We
Sorry, Rob Lee. He's watching this.
Reggie.
Just don't tell Reggie.
We had a company called Insight Interactive, Taylor helped me, Productions. In 2000, we did online conferences, and we had press credentials for ASAE up in Woodman Park for the technology management show. You remember that?
I remember that show. Yeah. Yeah.
That was a long time
That was
ago.
before the tech show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do a show there. It was a big transportation show. I'm trying to remember the name of that. For many years. In that basement area is horrible. Terrible place to do a
rains
show.
down there.
Oh, it's
Probably floods. It's probably flooded right now.
Probably. Who knows? Why should they be any different? So, okay, let's get to the news, all right? And a little segment that we like to call Wart on the Street. All right, some news and observations and everything else that we've been seeing going along. So the first thing I'd like to report is that I found that YouTube, in an effort to fight Instagram TV, their new big threat, is offering six-figure salaries or six-figure payments to their content providers, which is crazy. Now, it's the sort of...
So they won't shift? Is that why? They won't move to IGTV?
So that they'll stay there.
Okay.
Are they looking for a particular kind of content? Do you know?
I mean, it's what works, and again, it's mostly teeny bopper type stuff. It's like, hi, my name's Tom, and
and they've got like 1 million followers, right?
And they got 1 million followers.
It's incredible.
So I've often thought you could start a show like that.
Yeah, for teeny boppers.
For teeny boppers.
Well,
Thanks.
It's certainly an indication that that's where the eyeballs are. That's where the marketing is. That's where the content's going to be delivered.
No two ways about it. Yep.
What do I have? I've got that Google AdWords is now called Google Ads, but they also, in combination with that, launched Smart Campaigns, which it's geared for small businesses and local businesses, and it allows automated ad creation, allows you to figure out your audience, so design the audience, targeted audiences, display the ad through the Google Search Network or Display Network, and then the kicker is that they've introduced, I don't think it's going to be out for a couple months, but landing pages along with it. So a small business that doesn't have a marketing team like you do, Frank, and they can pretty much run, and they may not even have much of a website presence, if a website at all, they can run a campaign to drive people promotion, whatever it is, to a landing page and go from there. So I think it's really interesting. Google's doing that, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been following an article or a story that I saw that was actually came out of California, that a law firm sued Yelp, the online review site, to take down what they felt was a negative, slanderous review. Went all the way up to the California Supreme Court, and the California Supreme Court ruled that Yelp did not have to take it down. And it just got me thinking from a marketer's perspective, where I spend and many teams spend so much time trying to get positive reviews and testimonials and firsthand customer experiences. What would you do if something you just felt was blatantly wrong, slanderous, that was posted online on a review site, that maybe was specific to your industry or like Yelp? What was your recourse to take it down?
So what was the industry that got reviewed?
It was a
restaurant?
a law firm.
Of course. So the law firm, of course, sues. No one else is probably going to sue, right?
A little
the law firm
dependent
does.
on reputation.
Well, this is going to impact big brands, right? Because they might have a legal team to do that. But this law firm in particular was saying, we're willing to take this to the Supreme Court, because they just felt it was that wrong. And I think it sets a precedent for even the smaller brands, right? How do we respond to this type of, we'll say negative review? I mean, certainly if it's warranted, there's a lot of, you can reach out and you want to do all the right things. But if something is someone's just having a hit job, do you ignore it? No one, bite with a pig because they like to get muddy, or how do you respond? Because
I have a restaurant consultancy as a client, and the reviews just drive them crazy. And they've got all sorts of different strategies for responding to it. But I know other people who own restaurants who just like, I just don't bother with it.
Yeah,
right.
I think a lot of times if you respond, you can make it much worse, and it can blow up in the industry or in general, right? So a lot of times no response is better, right? And when you think about restaurant reviews or hotels or whatever, do you look at the bottom, the 1 stars and the 5 stars? You're probably looking at the 3 and the 4 stars to get a sense for something, and ignoring the Yahoo. But slander is a little different, right? But it probably depends on how bad it is.
It's just interesting. In particular, I work, from a technology standpoint in a rather kind of niche vertical, right? So a negative review could have a bigger impact than, say, Hilton, Marriott, larger global brands, right? Because maybe it's just spread out over 1 million reviews, where ours is going to pop up in a smaller and be like, hey, I saw this, and be like, what?
Thank goodness there isn't a site that reviews, your type of technology.
AMSs, that would be horrible if that happened.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
Tom?
ReviewMyAMS.com.
I think it's a big issue. And it's particularly, as you say, it's particularly a big issue when you don't have very many reviews.
Yeah.
And so a few negative reviews can skew everything. And in your case, you're selling an application that is very strategic, it's expensive, it's core to the business of the organization to whom you're selling it to. It's not like you go to a restaurant and it turns out you didn't have as good a meal as you thought you might have. But people are depending a lot on other people's opinions. Mm-hmm. sometimes
Social
more
proof, baby.
than the experts.
Yeah. So you brought a show and tell item for us, didn't you?
Well, I was going to watch the whole show through my goggles, but
I think you
you
should.
seem to think that was a bad
No,
idea.
I just think it needs to be all or nothing.
Yeah, all or
think you
nothing.
just need
Oh,
to
I should have
wear-
had them on from the
Yeah,
beginning.
it's too late now.
Yeah.
So we'll
Too
do it
late.
some other time.
It's
You
too
can
late.
do
I've been
that.
thinking a lot about technology, which I spend a lot of time thinking about digital transformation, where things are going, and what we're going to be doing next. This is something. Virtual reality is going to be very important. However, before virtual reality becomes important, I think something called augmented reality is going to become much more important. And I was struck with some information I ran across about a group of artists in Boston who felt they were underrepresented in established museums. They created an augmented reality app that for the the Museum of Modern Art.
Is it called Sour Grapes, the app?
Yeah.
Just curious.
And if you hold your phone up, if you go through, they were downloading this to people who came to the museum. If you hold your phone up, for those who don't know, augmented reality puts data or other information on top of what you're actually looking at, a live picture. And so they use this app, and if you hold it up in
front
the
of a piece
museum,
of art, right?
you see either their art or you see their art alongside the art that's actually hanging in the museum. Regardless of whether one agrees with the tactic or not, the whole idea that augmented reality is now within the reach of ordinary organizations, if you will, and the importance of it for marketing and for brand identification and for engagement, I think is going to skyrocket, and it's going to happen really, really fast. I think we're going to see just explosions of this, and I think most marketers ought to be thinking about how that's going to apply in their situation.
So I have to announce that since we last met on July 10th, we celebrated the 10th anniversary of the App Store. Doesn't it seem longer than 10 years ago?
Feels like 30.
It seems
It's incredible.
it's been around forever.
And it wasn't available on the
The
first
iPhone's
iPhone.
only been around since 2007.
I know,
Yeah.
it just seems so much later. So Wall Street Journal reprinted the entire interview with Steve Jobs, who's quoted as saying, "The mobile industry has never seen anything like this," and he was certainly right about that. But in reading around this issue, the other interesting piece that I read was something in Popular Science magazine, which wrote, "On the 10th anniversary of the App Store, it's time to delete most of your apps." I think that's probably true. You know, if every now and then I'll go through and I'll do this big purge.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, but maybe one day I'll use Anchor voice
Do you
marketing.
download many apps? I don't download anywhere near the number of apps I used to.
No, not anymore.
Or I'll download them, use them, and delete them again.
Yeah, right. I do that.
Yeah.
One of the things I know not very much about, but I see and read about, is the scale. It's mind-boggling to me, the scale of in-app purchases.
Really? I've never seen that.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
there was a game. I'm not familiar with it, but it was recently showcased. They're running $1 billion.
Oh, it's Fortnite.
Fortnite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of revenue.
I gave it $25 last night.
You all
Did you?
know
I
about
did.
it.
Yes.
In-app purchase. That's all
Not for me.
in-app purchase. $1 billion.
Yeah.
What we need is a technology company that can sponsor the creation of the Marketers Drinking Beer app. But we need to
there's
know
one
somebody who works
candidate.
at a technology company.
No, but
That's
it is
incredible.
It's almost a hidden market to most people.
Yeah.
And you think about the scale of that industry, it's huge. Apple gets a very, very large stream of revenue off
Right.
of that app store.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I've got, recently I read on the Marketing AI Institute blog that Amazon has just launched their Deep Lens camera. So this is a AI-powered image recognition device. So essentially a camera. And the way they described it was this one guy who worked for GeekWire that wrote about this and Marketing AI Institute was referencing. He took the camera, and he lived in an area where there were a lot of bears, and maybe the guy was scared of bears or something like that, which most of us would be if we lived in an area full of bears. And he had the camera outside, and he trained it through deep learning and whatever to recognize what a bear is through multiple images of a bear, right? And text him anytime there was a bear outside of his house. So it's kind of interesting, right? Okay, there's a bear, but this camera costs $250, and if you think of it,
says run.
Then just drink marketing potential.
Drink more beer.
Bear said it's too late.
Shotgun a beer or something like that. Yeah, don't run. So if it's $250, it'll probably be used a lot by developers initially. You had an example of it when I was talking about it earlier.
Yeah, so there's just the example that Amazon did when they rolled it out, which was that the guy would hold up an album, and then he would make either I like it or I don't like it kind of face. So he held up Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd and it wrote, it recognized Dark Side of the Moon. It recognized his facial expression as being happy. Held up another album which I didn't recognize, and he went, not happy, and so forth. So just as a way of loading up.
Bee Gees album, maybe? Do you think it was?
It wasn't the Bee Gees.
There's a new app that a friend was telling me about that. If you point the camera of the phone to a TV, like in a gym or something, based on the image, it will figure out what channel it is and what show it is and begin to stream the audio of that show through Bluetooth.
Whoa.
So it's doing recognition in real time. It's kind of like Shazam does with music.
Yeah.
This can look at a broadcast or a movie or something and figure out what channel it is and start sending the audio to you.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's AI, that's AI powered, but you can see the application. So I thought that was really interesting
I'll have
article.
to come up with a project for Frank to do.
Yeah, Frank's on it.
Frank will do something with that.
Frank, it's going to be this mysterious Frank guy that's always in the background, right? You know, like, that's cool.
Frank, the marketing.
What do you got?
So I sat up in my chair when I read this article about California. Yes, California. Again, I'm California, all about California themed.
You're back in California.
I know, I'm back in California.
California,
probably not
state legislature passed its own version of a mini GDPR law that's on the books. I think it's going to come on in 2019, 2020, all about data privacy and what are you going to do from the companies located in the States. So for all those individuals who are like, GDPR doesn't impact my organization, I don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to sit back and see what happens. This was kind of an eye-opener, like, if California is putting this on the books, it's only a matter of time before, you might have to be a little more focused on the impact or how this will impact your business, your organization, your marketing efforts. So, it was something I bookmarked of keeping an eye.
Did you guys jump through hoops to get GDPR compliant? Or?
Yeah.
I think
That was the best response I've
Hey, European users, there might be some money to be made through the lawsuit.
it doesn't really impact me. I think we all had to pay attention to it and be thoughtful about it and do the best we could to, it was a good wake-up call to clean up our data and put some best practices or remind ourselves of things we should have been doing anyway.
Yeah, like asking for permission to send people information.
I don't think fundamentally any of that is
good idea.
wrong,
Yeah,
right? And certainly if it improves my campaigns and the results of my campaigns, I want to take those steps.
It will.
And so, so from that impact, we put a lot of things in place and we continue to ask, push ourselves to ask the right questions at the right time. But, to follow it to the law, we're taking a wait and see and doing the best we can.
We're GDPR compliant. Guess who got us GDPR compliant?
Frank,
yeah.
Nice.
Of course Frank did. Frank rocks.
The biggest challenge I hear from organizations and companies, it's not so much the permission part, because a lot of people weren't doing it well. It's managing the information in such a way that when somebody says, I want to know everything you know about me, you have to be able to produce that.
Yep. Or I want to be deleted from your database.
Now I want it deleted.
Do you have one database? Do you have multiple databases? How do you coordinate data across?
Syncing with
they can just
partners,
ask the
database.
question.
Yeah.
They can just ask the question, tell me
extremely
everything
challenging
about me.
The backside.
And
of
most organizations have that in different buckets in different places.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big challenges.
Agree.
Yeah.
What you got?
Well, I'm still on technology. I won't put my glasses back on.
Thank you.
But I'm,
Thank you. I appreciate
you
that.
want me to put my
The strap hanging down.
So audio, voice activation, voice control, audio. Another area that is, I mean, it's growing exponentially.
Did you bring in an
Got
Alexa?
the Alexa offerings all from Amazon, got the Google Home, et cetera, et cetera. And I can't remember the statistics now, but a huge number, a very high percentage of households now have something in their house.
Yep.
And the question becomes, how do you leverage that as a content provider, as a marketer, and so forth? Because frankly, most of the things that you do, or at least that I do, you ask for the weather, you want to know what the population is of Greece, or some Google-like search, or you use it in home automation to turn off things and turn on things. But beyond that, to deliver real content, you need not only to have the ability to retrieve, but you need the ability to actually perform tasks. And the article I ran across this week is talking about Amazon calls them skills and Google calls them actions, but a big growing area of activity is people programming actions and activities into these devices so that their customers, their members, their constituents can do real interactions.
It's like the new App Store, in a sense. Speaking of the App Store, right? I mean, that's what they are.
The simple example is you can order things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to buy something. But it's going to get much more complicated than that, I think, very quickly. And I would think organizations, companies, would be wise to be thinking about this too. How do you add value in that environment? Because, again, a pretty good percentage of the interactions, I think, are going to take place through that voice and audio interface.
So I've got a follow-up or follow-on to yours that Google, it was just, I think in the last week, released a speakable markup for news publishers. And the idea is that you put in, I think it's like HTML code, onto your website, areas, and this is news publishers so it's for news publishers that want to get their content into Google Assistant, right? Which is part of Google Home, right? So you have to put in markup into areas of your website where you're not going to do the whole page, but you might say this specific area we want
this is where it'll fall.
Google's Assistant to be able to go and pull that information and read it to someone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So that's where you're talking about the content before, and that's where you're talking about how do you pull there's so much content in the web, and they're saying in specific, very intentional ways, you can put in code that Google will know to go and pull that.
That's really interesting because it wouldn't have to be displayed either. I mean, it wouldn't have to be displayed on a normal web page. That could be hidden code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty interesting.
I mean, there's things that the search engines see that you don't see.
Right.
That's fascinating. I didn't hear about that.
My company integrates to CRM, basically an AMS for association, and we integrate with, basically Amazon and many of these devices for people to read their forecast or basically financial reports. So you can ask a question, but also to Dave's point, there's a certain code that you can put on a news site, basically the news page, and it will read the top news of the day for that industry if it's basically already on the website, because they're publishing real news for their members. So I think this is a growing, benefit. People just want to come in their office and say, where are we on the registrations for the annual conference? Where are we year to date on revenue? And boom, before you even sit down or turn on your computer, it's there because it's pulling it out of your AMS or your CRM.
Is that a shameless plug? Is that what we call that?
I was trying to be polite. I
like it. That's interesting. Yeah.
All right, we'll close it out. I was going to actually skip this one. I got bumped in the foray of great news stories, but I mentioned it in the introduction, so I got to talk about it real quickly. Podcast revenues are soaring, topping $659 million by 2020, up from $314 million in 2017. Just incredible leap, reported by Search Engine Journal. And we might have some interesting news about that coming up soon. We'll see. Poor Frank. Frank's looking into that, maybe turning this into a podcast. And then the final thing I wanted to end with before we get to our next great segment is that Adidas is surprising influencers with personalized outdoor advertising. So what they would normally do is they'd send their new shoes to all their influencers and hope that they would write a review. What they're actually doing is they're personalizing ads that go on the side of buildings and on billboards and so forth that say, hey, Patrick, next time you're near our store, stop in. We got a free pair of shoes for you. And it's just a great way of really engaging, those influencers. And we were talking earlier about how important influencer marketing is. But it also is a way to sort of piggyback onto their brand. So really, really fascinating. Doing personalized billboards, outdoor advertising. All right, that brings us to
it's like mass customization for advertising.
I think they're only doing like 5. I was going to make that point. I think they're only doing like 5 or 6 in the city. But yes, it's exactly.
But it's that direction.
That's exactly right. So that brings us to our next segment, the tasting room. I'm happy to report. Are we excited?
Yeah, man, I'm thirsty.
All right, let's get to it.
We have been working hard, actually.
What's that?
We have been working hard. We deserve it.
That's right.
Are we
So
drinking?
our beer, we're drinking, boys. So our beer today is none other than Pilsner. That's its only name.
Pilsner.
By
I love
Manor Hill
Pilsner.
Brewing in Ellicott City, Maryland.
Oh, it's local.
Yeah, local.
I love it.
Speaking of flooding.
Speaking of flooding, I was going to say.
Yeah, I hope they're not flooded. Yeah.
I am a
Beer cans
huge-
floating down the road.
I'm a huge Pilsner
Oh, am I drinking
fan.
out of a
Be
glass?
civilized.
I'm not. I'm drinking out of the can.
Go for it. So what do we know about this? It's German-style Pilsner. It's 5.3 alcohol by volume. Speaking of ratings, a 4 out of 5 star rating, which is excellent on Beer Advocate. Do you guys know Beer Advocate?
Yes.
And here's the brewery's description. Our take on a classic German Pilsner was created using corn grown on our very own farm. Leaf Saaz, Hellertau, Mittelfrüh, and Triple Pearl hops provide a distinct German grassiness that is followed by a touch of grain, citrus, and a clear finish.
Now that's marketing.
I noticed the German grassiness right away.
Did you really? Let me see. I'll see if it's German. I know German grass.
I can taste the difference that it was.
That's a different crash.
I know a couple different types of German grass.
This is a
You can taste the difference that it was their corn.
I like this, man. This is a good beer.
Would you like
I could
a
drink
glass?
this all day long.
It's good stuff. What's that?
No,
tastes better
I'm going with the
in
can.
the glass.
You're going
In the
with
glass?
can.
It does.
Yeah, I'm just canning
Okay.
We
it.
might be missing something, Tom.
Might be.
Can might be adding a lot of flavor. Or not.
I'll try.
I like their logo. I love Pilsners.
Yeah.
It's good, man. This is good stuff. Good job.
So thank you. I walked into a beer store. I never asked people for their recommendations on beer. I said, I want something kind of new, either a lager, a Pilsner, or I want to stay away from Hefeweizen because we did that last time.
Yep.
And I said, how about this? Here, this is a lager. And they squirt lime juice into it. I said, no.
No, we're not
So he
doing
finally
that.
worked his way around here. I said, is it new?
We're not
He
that
said, no, it's
cheesy.
an old standard, but it's really a good Pilsner. So
From Ellicott City.
good.
Speaking of floods,
I know.
Ellicott City flooded for the second time this year. Big time.
It
The
didn't flood
downtown.
again today, did it?
No,
This
I don't
time
know.
around?
It was earlier in the year, I
It
think.
was threatening.
Have you
I
ever
love
heard of this
it. Good
brewery?
job, Pilsner.
Thank you.
Prior.
Yeah.
Manor Hill Brewing.
He's
No.
doing a
heard of
good
this
job
brewery?
picking it out. I've never heard of him. Frank.
It was a good job picking it
Why is
out.
Frank not sitting here?
Yeah,
That's-
Frank should
that's
come out
really
here.
The question. So maybe we'll bring Frank out later. So yeah, that's good stuff. It's got a nice golden color.
Yeah.
All good stuff. So while we're doing this, we're still enjoying this. Why don't you tell us about the book you've been reading?
Oh, the book that I'm on page 12, I think it is. Now, I just started reading this. It's called Powered by Storytelling by Murray Nossel. I hope I pronounced that properly. I actually came across this through an ASA newsletter, e-newsletter. And normally I don't look necessarily there for marketing, good marketing reads, but, I got it. It was very highly rated. Humans have been telling stories for millions of years. Businesses have not been doing a very good job of telling stories. Businesses typically like to just spew a lot of crap about how good they are, right? And we've lost that art of storytelling. And so this book is a guide and a methodology to tell stories that drive business, right? So I'm jumping into it. I work in an association now, and that's just as important, especially for membership, to be able to tell stories about your members and for your prospects who may want to become members. So I'm on it and I'm reading it, and maybe I'll let you guys know next time if I'm on page 13 more about it.
You know, the whole we could serialize the whole thing and just do page by page. On page 14.
Well, luckily it's not like a huge, it doesn't have a lot of words per page. You can get through it pretty quickly.
Pictures,
right? Yeah.
Pictures
There's big pictures for Dave.
So one whole installment might be a picture.
You guys pretty quickly figured out that just big font, not too much for Dave.
Well, this whole issue of storytelling is really interesting. And I knew it was coming up on the show tonight, so I thought, what would happen if you transformed your brand so that everything about your brand was told in the form of a story, including fictional characters? Fictional characters who would interact with, I mean, this is craziness. I should drink 3 more of these before I talk about this. But just I thought it'd be kind of interesting. So every story would be a compelling story, about these fictional characters who are interacting with your brand. What do we think? Yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I would create an app. And have the fictional characters, and then I
Put it
could,
on the
like,
App
to
Store,
Tom's
put it in
point,
iTunes.
I could monetize it. You could buy different things for those characters.
And the characters could be on Yelp.
There are people working in that
Fortnite,
area,
and you could shoot them if you wanted to.
Yeah, you could kill them all.
Yeah.
It'd be like a soap opera.
That would be so much fun.
Fortnite for brands, right?
Yeah. Oh, that will be fun.
But what
That's
if you had
genius.
Putting people out of business, right? Who's playing for second, right?
See?
You've been
Well,
warned.
when you do marketing personas, it's not so much different. You're just not turning it into a show.
But you would turn. But I
I'm
agree.
just saying.
But you would take it.
It's
and
got a
everyone's
basis.
got like Mary, the CEO, right? But what if Mary, had a backstory that was all, she dropped her kids off at the whatever, and she's cheating on her husband, and
It's like that Jim Carrey movie, right?
she's-
Boy, what happened to Mary? Mary went downhill so quick. She drops her kids off and cheats on her husband.
I hope she's not working for
That's
me.
the worst storytelling.
I was watching.
You got to
Fox
read
News
this book.
earlier.
You just take the book, all right? Yeah.
Yeah, you need to go back to
It's
school.
not about that. Okay. We could write music to anyway.
Oh, that went downhill pretty quickly.
Yeah, sure, it certainly did. Okay, so we're going to do our next segment, which is head to head. This is where we do a bit of a deep dive on a topic of interest, and I've been reading a lot lately. It just caught my attention because it strikes me as just a little bit odd, and I'm not entirely sure that I trust these guys. But this is this notion of these efforts to curtail device and app addiction, right? So anybody has kids knows that their kids walk around with their apps all the time. Not just kids, right? It's adults. People, I use mine as my alarm clock, so it sits next to my bed. But I know my younger son, it must wake him up 10 times a night with stuff coming in. And
Really?
Yeah, it just
That's not good.
It's not good at all. So
Frank's the golden child, though.
Frank
right?
is the golden child. Yeah, the other one has done almost nothing for my marketing business. Although he just gave me a free trial to FC Bayern TV, which I appreciated. That came out of the blue. I said, "Here, Dad, thought you'd like to try this." So I'm excited. So suppliers, including Microsoft and Apple, are they claim to be acting on behalf of their users. So they don't want their users to get addicted to their devices. Can that be true? I mean, there are already many of them addicted. So I don't know. Do we believe that? I
I'm
think that's one of the.
skeptical.
Is it just a PR thing to try to get parents on their
I
side?
think they're going to try to monetize it.
What's the ulterior motive here? Or is there? I mean, we're so cynical. It's terrible. But
It's like Yahoo with their email. You pay me $4.99 a month, I'll take the ads out, right? And we're going to pay Apple $4.99 a month, and they'll have an automatic shutdown time.
well, it's showing up in the new iOS operating system, and it's going to have all sorts of new stuff. I think they've already got stuff that shuts kids down after a while.
There are apps that can, but not Apple. Apple's not doing it, right?
Well, this is not coming out in the new operating system. So new things with permissioning, new things with, you can set, like, I don't want to ever receive more than X number of notifications from these different apps, from these different people. I mean, they're really getting into that business to reduce the psychological dependency on these apps. Now, in similar news, within the last 3 weeks, Marketing Profs, who subscribes to Marketing? You do? Okay. So they've cut back their newsletter from 1 a day, 5 a week, to 2 a week, just out of their own free will. And there, I don't suspect what. You think people are complaining?
No, I think probably statistically they looked at it and they said, they could see opens, reading, all different metrics to say what is the optimal delivery times, frequency, and all of that. And probably the business decision, the smart business decision, was to reduce it from 5 days a week. You know, and so they could still remain relevant. We're all overwhelmed by the amount of stuff in our inbox, business, personal, everything in between. And they probably just said, if we give it to 2 days a week, maybe people will look for it as opposed to, oh, here's another email that we received. Right now, I mean, I feel that way about a lot of, business newsletters I receive from our industry, right? It's like, I don't want to see it daily because I get quickly overwhelmed by it, right?
So for someone without the AI chops that I'm guessing Marketing Profs has going for them, how do you decide? How do you make that decision? I mean, we've just recently, my company made a sea change in the type of content that we're doing, not only who we're trying to target, but it's resulted in a lot less content, just doing less content.
Well, I think with anything, you have to step back, and it's a little to your point. Well, what are we trying to accomplish with this stream of information that we're sending? And what's the optimal way to achieve that? And I think there's been an assumption for a long time that more is always better.
Yep.
Seeing it more often, getting people to look more often, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also a qualitative dimension to that chart. And as you say, you may get it every day, and it may kind of show up as a read somewhere, but you're not paying attention to it. That's the qualitative dimension. Yeah. And if you're sending it twice a week or once a week, but you actually read that email, then that frequency may produce a whole lot more in terms of what your objective was than just sending it 5 times, because then you can say, I saw it 5 times. It's not, it's impact. The incentives for somebody like Apple and dependency on that phone is a little bit different. And my suspicion is that the technology companies are aware of a rising concern about this, and they want to try to nip it in the bud before it turns into regulation of some sort. I actually think all of that is probably for the good, but I wouldn't put it all down to altruistic reasons.
Yeah, I would just add that it's like a focus on, if you focus on outcomes over outputs,
exactly,
then that's what makes a difference. And a lot of marketers are focused on all the stuff they're just doing instead of like, what are the outcomes it's producing for you? And so Marketing Profs probably said, we're doing freaking 5 of these a week. They're time consuming. We're creating a lot of content for them to fill them up. And what are they doing for us, right? And so if they started to focus on what are the outcomes of them, that's probably one of the drivers.
Well, and remember, it wasn't that long ago that website effectiveness was simply hits, right?
Yeah.
How many times people banged on that website and supposedly saw something on the website, but you had no idea whether it had any impact, whether it was the right audience, whether they actually read anything, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've gotten a little more sophisticated about that, at least some people have.
Well, also there's another level beyond that. So I can tell how many people are hitting my website. I can tell how long they're staying. I can tell what they're reading. But the next level about that, big deal. I'm not in the publishing business. I'm selling something.
Right.
So what is the effect of all of that, and that's really the sea change that we're going through, is changing our content to away from stuff that is of interest to people in this field to stuff that is of interest to people to buy things.
Right.
And that's along the lines of something we talked about earlier today for another segment, which is about scoring and keeping track of whether you're in fact progressing down a path, in your case, somebody to purchase your services, but it could be different for somebody else. But some way to put some measurement into not just the consumption of the content, but the outcomes that come as a result of it.
I think another thing
It's tough though. It's not easy. It sounds easy, but it's not.
But you looked at 10 years ago, 15 years ago, marketing profs was your go-to resource, right? Now they have competition. And it's become even more niche. You can be a blog or a podcast that could just be about SEO. It could be about scoring. It could be, AI. And so you now can have a specialty feed based on what subject is more relevant to you. So it almost focuses all of us marketers to go to those personas and really provide value. Today said focus on the outcomes. What are you trying to achieve? But you just can't have content for the sake of content, right? Like, I think in our earlier session we talked about the signal and the noise, and you have to really break it down to what is relevant to those different personas or different audiences. And marketing profs probably realize, like, we have all this competition, it's getting very specialized, we're not really having one-on-one conversations. It's focusing on a step back and say, how can we meet that demand or that expectation?
So how do you handle search engine optimization with things like that, with Google looking for regular publication of things, and Google still rewards people for more to a certain extent, as far as I can read the tea leaves.
No, but Google's changed. I mean, the algorithm is changing regularly, but it was within a year. The past year, one of the changes they made was that you started to see longer blog posts getting favored because they showed authority. And you always heard, a blog post should be 300 to 500 words. Now it's like 1,500. Right. So that shows more in-depth instead of some little blurb that doesn't do you anything, right? Like the longer posts are going to give you.
Well, there was a lot of that inside baseball stuff, a move away from the inside baseball stuff on SEO to quality content.
Right.
Right?
And less, maybe.
Well, that's the question. I don't know if they're valuing less. I mean, do they take it that, they're still looking at more. So there's always going to be that balance in there. So it'll be interesting to see. I think what this comes down to is, I agree with you guys. I see it as, more of the sort of inbound marketing mantra where, you want only the people coming who have, who really want to come to your site. You want to send stuff to only the people who really have asked for that specific thing, and so forth. So it's more and more and more of that. But I think it's going to be really hard for a lot of marketers to change. We were talking before the show that the people who this hurts are probably the startups, the newer organizations. We were talking about email lists. Now, I've never actually bought an email list, but boy, is that tempting to me, because of, I'd like to get the ball going. I can't wait, 7 months, a year, for inbound. When I roll out a new product, I can't wait that long for that stuff to start paying off.
Yeah, but buying email lists is not GDPR compliant.
Absolutely.
One of the
Back
things
to your
always,
GDPR.
One of the things
So don't buy them.
Make California angry.
Yeah.
It always amazes me that people don't assume that the people they're marketing to or communicating with are like them. And what I mean by that is we've seen it in membership organizations. I use that technology every day, but my members don't. Or I have this expectation, but my customers don't. And you think about it, I mean, there are all these data about how many times people pick up their phone. It's like every 10 minutes or something. And so you're one of those people, I'm one of those people. When I pick up the phone, what am I hoping to find? It's not the email newsletter from company XYZ, or at least not in its current form. So I think a lot of marketers would be well served to stand back and say, well, if I'm trying to make an impact on somebody on their phone, what would catch my attention? Why do I check my phone? and I think it would be somewhat sobering. So I think this whole idea of focusing on finding ways to break what seems to be pretty much a classic addiction has the spin-off benefit of making marketers think about who am I sending to, what am I sending to, what am I hoping to accomplish, and what's the best way to do that, not just send more.
Interesting. Okay, tell us about HubSpot's out-of-office generator.
Oh God, this is kind of silly, and I got to pull out my piece of paper.
As opposed to everything else we do.
That's all right.
As opposed to most of the other stuff I talk about. So it's OOOgenerator.com,
okay.
and it's just a fun type of thing. So most of the time, people's out-of-office email message that when you send Patrick an email and he's on vacation, it's like, yeah, I'm on vacation and I'll be checking email, blah, blah, right? Or I won't be checking email. And so they've made it a little bit fun. So there's a form, if you go to OOOgenerator.com and you put in your first name, your last name, when you're going to be on vacation, the stop and the start, where you're going, what you're going to be doing, and like if it's urgent, who they could contact, right? So I did that, and here's the message example that I got that spit out of it. It says, "Oh, this is awkward. You've caught me away from my desk. The crowd gasps. I'm in Spain until August 8th, and I know I'm supposed to say I have limited access to email, but the truth is the Wi-Fi works just fine here, so hashtag sorry, not sorry. I'm just focusing on drinking wine instead of my inbox. Once I'm back from my holiday, I'll look forward to embracing Wi-Fi again and following up with you after the post-vacation blues, of course."
Wow.
Right? So that's kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
Put that in as your out-of-office.
Yeah, if you don't get fired, it's great.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Wow. Who's going to use that? I'm not sure.
I'm going to try it next week.
You're going on vacation?
Go-
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
I'll put it out there.
OOO generator.
Does it change? Does it stay the same? I mean,
You can go back and just type in
no,
some
but
other words.
They don't dynamically change
I
it.
might just use it and
No.
stay in the office just to see how people
Just see what
respond. Yeah. It's my own little focus group of one.
I mean, I could imagine the out-of-office message. You're in the Bahamas, and it gives you current. By the way, it's currently 87 degrees
And not raining.
and sunny.
Not raining.
And your basement
Sorry.
isn't flooded.
Sorry, not sorry.
As a service to the three of you, I would be happy to record your voicemail messages when you go out of town. I'd be happy to do that just as a service. You just have to promise to.
Can you get the
Use
guy
it.
from that pub you were talking about earlier? He can help.
I can get the Irish bartender.
The snarky Irish bartender.
Snarky Irish bartender. Okay, moving on to our next segment. That's interesting. I would certainly give that a look. Formidable fermentations. How's that for a terrible pun?
Oh.
Right? People have challenges, and yet out of this horrible challenge comes this great thing. Just like you mix everything in your beer and the
Let me see if I can find that.
Yes, see if you can find that.
Ferment. Yeah.
And you could drink out of that. I just thought.
Out of the Oculus.
I could try drinking with those on, standing on the edge of a chasm. No, I don't think
That'd be
that'd
good.
be a good idea.
Okay, so we wrote to people, and this is just so everybody knows. Go ahead and send us your marketing challenges, and we'll do our best to answer them on the air. So moving quickly, first one: my sales team is driving me crazy with collateral requests. How do I keep them focused on what they need rather than on all these one-off requests? What do you do? We love salespeople, don't we? Love salespeople.
what's collateral?
Oh, yeah.
So that's your question.
Can you tell us a little more about the company?
Something you print.
The company is a
Does that mean it's printed?
It's a mid-sized software company, kind of like yours.
Go offer.
So stop printing collateral. Number one, your website's your collateral. So just have a good website that's informative and have your salespeople share that.
I think it goes back to some of the earlier themes we were talking about being storytelling and being relevant and talking. A collateral, I think the moment you print it, it's somewhat outdated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's technical, a data sheet, something in its most driest form. I think that's putting it on your website gives you a lot of flexibility to constantly update it. Put a little
measure it.
marketing speak into it.
Yep.
Insert quotes, relevant quotes that are topical. I think just printing stuff becomes just not the best use of marketing time.
Well, maybe it's not just
resources.
printing. Maybe it's just that I need an answer to this question. Does our thing work in Europe? How do you deal with that?
I think you can have that on your website, whether it's maybe FAQs or just topical or specifications. There's a lot of ways that can exist on your website. And you have more flexibility and control from resources to the content itself from a marketing standpoint. And the benefits, whether we go back to like SEO and all the different nuances there, are going to be far more a better use of your time and resources than a printed piece or physical collateral. Yep. And then there's a time and place, I think, for leave behinds. Maybe you have an RFP and you know that you're presenting to a board and they want to hold something. I mean, I like to hold things and I like to read things and print them out. So I recognize that's important. I'm a little old school, but people consume content in different ways. So I think as much as you want to go towards that digital, you just have to be know who your audience is, right?
The only thing that's ever worked for me on this, in all my history of working with salespeople, is to really be in partnership with somebody at your level in the sales organization who is as responsible for delivering that collateral as you are. And that way that person is able to talk to the salespeople and say, look, it's not marketing. You told us you wanted these 3 things. We're working on those 3 things, and you're going to have to wait until we get you those 3 things before we start doing this other stuff. So that's the only thing that's ever worked with me. Big shout out to Bob Wood, who I partnered with on that.
Salespeople, we've talked about this on other occasions. Salespeople and marketing people are very different. And salespeople, this is a very common scenario. I ran a telemarketing group years ago, and it had all the same things. And what salespeople are focused on is closing individual deals. And they feel they know what they need from a product standpoint, from a collateral standpoint, and all of that for that particular individual prospect. And what drives the marketing people crazy is they're trying to design collateral that'll work for a market or a market segment or targets, not necessarily individuals. And so there's a lot of disconnect that comes in. And we see it in, product features. They want, this is the most important feature we need to add to our product. Well, when you sort down through it, it turns out that one of the prospects said, that's really important. May not have heard it from anybody else. It may be important, but that's the source of it. Having said that, and taking collateral to assume it's not necessarily printed, there is no reason in today's world why the marketing department can't have modules that then a salesperson assembles and delivers as though it were a single piece of collateral to a given prospect. They're interested in these 5 things. Okay, you can assemble those 5 things. Just choose those 5 things and it turns into a brochure looking or collateral looking PDF that then you send to somebody.
Mm-hmm. I was just looking, I think it was like 2 days ago, at a company that had reached out to my boss and she sent it to me that does just that. And I don't remember the name of it. I should remember the name of that company. I checked out their website and it allowed the marketer, especially with like a global distributed sales force. What if your sales force is 500 people versus 5 people, right? Big difference in the needs and demands. But this software allowed you to essentially customize and lock down certain elements, other elements or modules within this brochure that the salesperson could tweak, but there were certain things the market bureau said, this is locked down, you can't mess with it, and it's got to be here in this area or whatever, which seemed, that was interesting.
And we do that all the time today with personalized email campaigns. Rearrange which story's the lead story, what are the 3 stories that goes in Patrick's email versus Dave. There's no reason why that can't apply to collateral.
Yeah, I use a product called, do you use any proposal software?
I do not.
Okay, I use a product called Proposify. It's very inexpensive. It's freaking great. I can pull all my content. I only have to write about testimonial videos once, and it gets pulled into the different proposals. So that's another way to do that. So Tom, while you've got the floor, Mary wants to know, can you recommend a good online survey tool? You're the expert.
The age-old question.
The age-old question. And I'll add the question: if you can recommend it, do I really want to use do my own surveys?
Yeah, it's an easy question to answer, and it's a hard question. The easy part of the answer is there's lots of really great survey tools out there. There's a whole range from the ones we use are pretty sophisticated and have programmable logic that go all over the survey, but most people don't need that. And then there's some that are so simple they're really kind of not terribly useful. But something like SurveyMonkey is used by millions of people, big companies, little companies, and all the rest. The problem is that a survey tool doesn't make you a researcher any more than a graphic design program or a word processor makes you into a collateral or graphic designer. And the technology has gotten to the point where it's so seductively easy. You just type in your question and it automatically formats answers. You can pick from scales. But if you don't actually know what you're going to do with that, or what it is that you're trying to find out, or how you're going to word the question and why it makes a difference, you can get into more trouble than it's worth. So it's an easy question. It's also a hard question.
Because people need to spend a lot of time on the questions, not necessarily the software. The better question that you ask, the better the results you're going to get back, right? Because a lot of times you ask stupid questions or that they haven't thought through enough, let's say, and then the responses back they're getting may not be usable or. Right?
There are a lot of questions, and you've seen them, they will be of no use. A very common one is where you put two different elements in the question. And so when the person agrees with it, you have no idea what they're agreeing or disagreeing with because you've got two elements in there. That's just a simple one. But yeah.
All right, next one. Should I focus on IGTV, which is Instagram TV, over YouTube? What are the pros and cons? You just think IGTV is ridiculous.
I never said that. I think it depends. It depends on if you know your audience, like Patrick said before, know your audience, you'll know where they are and how they consume information and where they consume information. But the truth of the matter is YouTube's the second largest search engine after Google. So, I don't know where.
Now.
Right. It's probably changed just since we started this program. But anyway,
I think the big thing is that you can only shoot vertically with IGTV.
Yeah.
But now you can shoot up to an hour. So if you feel the need to shoot over an hour, you can do that with YouTube. You can't do that with Instagram. I think there's some interesting ways that they're pulling into their stories. I mean, you need to think of IGTV as part of the broader Instagram app, which is something that is lacking on YouTube. So I think it's worth watching. Instagram has a habit of doing very well into markets and areas that they move into. So I think.
So when I do my teeny bopper show, you're saying I should do it on IGTV,
you should
basically.
Definitely do that.
All right, thanks.
Get a gimbal.
That helps.
But do it on IGTV. All right. Yeah, get a gimbal. So what are some key skills that a marketing specialist should have? So this is, I think, somebody looking for a job.
Writing.
Let me reverse it. What skills are you guys looking for when you hire people at that level?
I'm looking for someone that has the ability to communicate, but specifically in written form. We talked a lot about the website, collateral, not necessarily survey questions, but I want to have that ability, that resource that can effectively communicate in a written form, and particularly in, a communication from an email standpoint or on the website. So it's not technical, it's storytelling, or it's individual, it's personalized, it's not full of marketing cliches. And I would look at a background there, maybe even have a writing sample. That's probably where I'd start, and then go from there.
Yep. I think it depends a little bit on the position you're filling, right? And
I get the impression
this is kind of a generalist, marketing generalist kind of role. Mm-hmm. So if it's like a marketing generalist kind of role, I think they have to be able to write. Number one, I think they need to be an analyst. So they got to be able to look at data and interpret data and understand data. One thing I'd done is in interviews, and I would do team interviews. So like the marketing team at Aptify, we would interview prospects. So there's 5 people, some on Zoom, some in the room. And we would just give them like a mathematical kind of scenario. We'd give them a funnel. And we'd say there's X number of visits coming to the top of the funnel, and here's how many you're having. Here's how they're converting. What's the conversion rate from lead to MQL? And see if they can quickly do that. And one guy that we ended up hiring was like, damn, he was right on it. So analyst, you got to be able to analyze data. If you can write but can't analyze, you're not as useful, right? So I think those are critical.
So where does creativity come in? What about creative?
They have a good sense. They have to understand. I think they have a good sense of color. You don't see it a lot, honestly. You just don't see it a lot in marketers that are creative.
Creative in what sense?
Design.
You mean
right?
like design kind of creative?
Well, I would say visual content.
Yeah.
And maybe not even necessarily being able to do that. That's somebody, but knowing the ability to do it. So in marketing, in video marketing, which is where I come out of, you don't need to know how to run cameras or set up lights, but you need to know what's possible and what makes for good video, what doesn't make for good video.
Yeah. You don't see people with that skill. I think people need to know how to HTML code. If they can't do that and that's over their heads, then just get rid of them right away.
You can't do HTML.
Yeah, they should be able to make web page edits and be able to go behind the scenes in an email and be able to edit it.
In today's age?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm surprised to hear that. That's interesting.
Definitely.
I haven't looked at an HTML code.
I can HTML
years.
code and CSS and stuff like that. I think more importantly than anything for me, it's I'm looking for kids that have some kind of a liberal arts background, less specific. Like I went and got my BA in marketing. I'm less interested in that than a critical thinker.
Who here has a liberal arts degree? Okay, that's what I thought.
The reason I asked about creativity is that I have managed marketing people for a long time, but I think in today's age, marketing's a lot harder now than it used to be. There's a lot more noise. There's a lot more competition for attention. The buyers are more sophisticated in many respects. And so I think a person who has creativity from the standpoint of being able to think of different ways of impacting prospective customers, I think that's pretty critical. If people want, and I've known people, they're very good, but they want to know what the process is that they're supposed to do. And if I were looking for a marketing person, I'd want somebody that could look at the process and say, we need to go this way and zig over that way, and because that's where our opportunities are. And I think, frankly, that's one of the hard parts.
Yeah,
You can find people like you to do the video.
I don't think I've interviewed anyone in the last year plus that would know HTML or anything like that. And maybe I'm not asking the right questions, to be fair.
Maybe one of us is a nerd.
Very, very possible. But if you think about it, the HTML is about the technology side. It sort of gives you a sense, are they a technologist? Are they interested in because you got technology, you got to be able to write, you got the technology side, you got the critical thinking side, and you got to be able to analyze. And you want to bring all that. If it's a generalist, they gotta have some skills in all of those.
One point or a question or theme that I usually use in an interview, to Tom's point about almost like their creative thinking, is I ask them about what campaigns that they like and why, right?
Good question.
And I try to see if there's like an emotional connection, right? Did it really impact? Was it not that it wasn't impactful and I went and bought that, but what did it make them feel? And from there, I feel then we can have that discussion about, from a creative standpoint, like, so how would that translate to this industry, right? How would this translate to our product and where we're selling? And if they can make that leap, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like a home run, it doesn't have to be right, but if they've had that critical thinking to show me why and how they got to that point, then I feel like they're looking at that big picture from a creative standpoint. And then maybe we can work with them on some of the analytics or maybe the more technical things. But they're going almost back to the liberal arts. How are they approaching the problem and breaking it down and then thinking about it? That's one of the things I'm looking forward to.
My challenge, though, is if you're a, say, smaller organization and you need a generalist to do a lot of different things, if they can't come in and either understand and figure out HTML or have some experience doing it, you have to find someone else to do it. Who's going to do it?
Who the hell does HTML?
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, I really am.
You're doing the work. I'm surprised that the interface is such that they have to.
Frank's doing the damn HTML. That's what's happening.
He does. Stop nodding over there. He does
every day.
But I mean, some of the basics.
Thanks, Frank.
I'm going to hire Frank.
Yes.
No, you're
you
not.
can poach him.
Frank has
I think
Frank
about
has a liberal arts background.
That's right.
I think about
Hands
the
off
book
Frank.
that you're on page 12 of, storytelling. Storytelling is about emotional connection. It's about creating imagery in people's minds. It's, I mean, people who can take stuff that you're trying to market and turn it into compelling stories, that's the kind of person.
I agree.
But if you can't sit there and know and understand why you need to build a marketing technology ecosystem, then you're missing something too.
Maybe.
Yeah, but I mean,
That's what drives a lot of marketing today.
I know-
SurveyMonkey integrates really well with HubSpot, for example,
but
and
you
a
don't
bunch
have
of
to- you
other
don't have to do
platforms.
But that's at a higher level. That's not at HTML level. HTML level is more.
No,
of a
I know.
mechanical
But
level.
that-
So there, I agree with you. Okay, lots of
Too much talking. I
Some
gotta shut
disagreements about all that. Plenty of advice for you to go get a great job. Write back to us when you get that great job. And the last one, new job at a startup. Have been working on our SEO for 6 months. How long before we start getting some decent rankings?
I'll leave that to my colleagues.
Let me go. Anybody think 3 months?
3 more months?
6 months? A year?
If you're not doing anything paid,
18 months?
12 to 18 months.
12 to 18 months, I'd say.
I would say so.
And that's if you're doing a lot of
And you
content
gotta-
creation and looking for that SEO.
Right, and you're
to build.
optimizing every month.
Yeah.
Like you're building and building. Like
Right.
you can't just build it and they will come and say
Right.
like, oh, 6 months. let
Set
me
it and
sit
forget
back.
it, huh?
Set it
Right.
and forget it. Like you're gonna forget it for a long time.
Yeah. And it's frustrating because if you've come from an established company and you're used to dealing with 20,000 visits a month and you go to 80, it's not happy
It's hard,
times.
yeah.
It's difficult times.
Yep. So be patient. If
Does
you're
that
doing it
vary
right,
a
it'll
lot
come.
by industry?
I'm sure it does.
I'm sure it does.
Well, how long it takes?
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. That's a good question.
It is a good question.
Yeah.
I would have to. I think the big differentiator in there is if you pay for it, you can buy traffic. That might not be
You know
very good.
something that drove me nuts when I was at Aptify, which was a competitor to Impexium, is that there were smaller players in the market that had many clients. We were an enterprise level software, so we had 150 clients or something like that. Smaller players in the market had like 7,000 little small associations, and because of the amount of traffic that they got from all those associations, they were always ranking ahead of me, and it
Yep.
pissed me off,
Yep.
and I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
No, you can't really do anything
Yep.
about it.
So that's
When I was at Personified, one of the people who used to vex me the most is a company that they just bought. Because they've got a bunch of these millions of small,
And their name is in every URL because they build.
and their name is in every URL. That's
Right.
right.
And so it
drives me
was
crazy.
yes.
You want some more
yes,
beer?
I think
exactly.
we're ready for another one,
I
aren't
think
we?
we're ready for another one. So getting towards the end here. So just wanted to let everybody know we're going to start doing a marketers drinking beer poll. For this week, we're going to do the poll on the war on device addiction that we talked about earlier. Is that going to help or hurt your marketing efforts? So you'll see that there. We'll announce the results at our next show. And then finally, it's time for Hoppy Comments. See what I did there? Hoppy Comments. So no one's
So happy
impressed.
with himself.
Well, Dave
He's so
and I-
happy with himself.
Dave and I were very happy about it.
If we ever do a morning show, it's
Yes.
going to be bad.
Right. So the news is that Marketers Drinking Beer is moving to a new home. On August 23rd, that's our next show, we'll begin broadcasting from the Limerick Pub in Wheaton, Maryland. That's at 11301 Elkins Street, Wheaton, Maryland, 20902. And what is neat about that is that you can come down and be part of the live studio audience.
That's awesome.
How cool is that,
That
right?
is totally awesome.
We'll have a
Wait,
camera.
but Frank's
have a
gonna be
camera
there,
in the
right?
crowd. Frank, oh, thank God, yeah, Frank will be there.
We're screwed if Frank's not there.
Frank will be there. Yeah, we would be just terribly screwed if Frank were there. So become part of the live studio audience. There is some talk of getting some of these local breweries to sponsor us. But the first sponsorship, the home sponsorship, is from our friends at the Limerick Pub, who were kind enough to give us the space and the opportunity to do a show from there.
That's great.
I think it's going to
Awesome.
be really exciting.
It's like our pilot got picked up by a network. We're like
That's right.
legit.
That's right.
That's right. So check out the website, and we'll have other information there about how to get to the Limerick Pub and what to do and eat and all that other stuff while you're there. It's a great place. And that's it, boys. It's time for closing time. And I think when we go to the Limerick Pub, we're going to get one of their bartenders to record a little closing time rap for us. But until then, we'll see you all in August at the Limerick Pub. Thanks, fellas, and stay dry, kind of, on the way home.
Not dry,
Good
but
luck with
No,
that.
not dry, that dry, yeah. So time for another beer. Thanks, everybody. We're out.
Thank you.
see ya.